Welcome to this GCSE Maths revision video on how to calculate averages from frequency tables. I'm working on the basis that you already know how to calculate mean, mode, median and range from a list of values, and as this is a revision video, I'm not really looking to teach this subject from scratch, but to go over the methods involved and walk you through a couple of examples. Here's some typical data that we might find in a GCSE question. 25 football matches watched. We've counted the number of goals scored in each game and listed them out. What we're now going to do is put this data into a frequency table and calculate mean, mode, median and range from the table. So here we are. This data has now been put into a frequency table. So 0 goals 6 times, 1 goal 8 times, and so on. So what I'm going to do in this third column is work out the total number of goals scored for that row of my table. And in the first row, 0 goals 6 times. Well, 6 lots of 0 is 0. Second row, 1 goal 8 times. Well, 8 lots of 1 is 8. 2 goals 5 times. So 5 lots of 2, 10. I carry on like that through the table and end up with these values. And hopefully you've noticed that this third column I get by multiplying the first two columns together. So I'm going to write in here goals times frequency. So I've given my third column a title. I've also added up these values, come up with a total, and my total for the frequency I'm taking from the question. But if it wasn't in the question, you'd have to add up this frequency column yourself. Please don't add up this first column. I've seen that done, but there's no meaning to that. So let's look at what we have to do. Mean number of goals. Well, this 38 has just shortcutted adding all these 25 numbers together. So what do we know about mean? Total divided by how many there are. So 38 divided by 25. So pause the video, work that out, put that as your answer here. Okay, I've worked that out and written that in to my first answer. So I'm coming up with a mean of 1.52 goals per match. Now we look at mode. Again, if we were looking at the list, we could see that 1 goal is there 8 times. So that is our modal number. To do that from a frequency table, find the highest frequency and then choose the number of goals that corresponds to that. So that's going to be 1. Please don't make the mistake of writing 8. Yeah, you find the highest frequency, but you take your answer from the number of goals column. To do the median, let's think back to the list. If I rewrote this list in ascending order, 25 values, the median would be the 13th value. So I need to find out from my frequency table where's the 13th value. I'm going to do that by having a running total of my frequency. So here are the first 6 values. These next 8 take my running total up to 14, add in the next 5, 19. This 4 takes us to 23. And the last 2 takes us to 25. If you've done this correctly, this last entry here should match your total of your frequency. So then in this running total, let's find where this reaches and goes past the position of the median. Well, we just said 25 values. The position of the median is the 13th value. And if we look here, by the time we get to the end of row 2, we're already at the 14th value. So the 13th value must be one of these 8 ones. So the median is in here. So that's enough for me to say that my median is 1. Oops. Median is 1. Finally, range. Highest number of goals scored in any match was 4. Lowest number of goals scored was 0. So biggest minus smallest gives me a range of 4. So there are my 4 answers to this question. Next, I'm going to go ahead and look at grouped frequency tables. Here's a group frequency table. The difference between this and what we've just looked at is that the value in column 1, instead of being a single value, it's a range. But what we're going to do is going to look quite similar to what we've just done. So if you think back, we multiplied our first 2 columns, but are we going to multiply this 32 with 10, or are we going to multiply it with 12? Because we don't know the actual hourly pay for these 32 people. It's somewhere between £10 and £12. So what we're going to do is, for each of these ranges, we're going to take the value in the middle, which we can do by adding the 2 numbers together and dividing by 2. Ooh, sorry, it should be 18. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and title this midpoint because it's the mid of these 2 values. The next thing I'm going to do is multiply the midpoint with the frequency. So I've multiplied frequency by midpoint, filled that in for each of the 4 rows in the table. I've totaled up this column and I've totaled up my frequency column, but I was given that in the question. So similar to the previous question, I'm going to take this total and divide by 80, and that's going to give my estimate for the mean value. This red cross is here because I don't want you to add up the midpoints. I've seen that done, but there's no meaning or value in that, so please don't do that. So I've divided 1054 by 80, did that on my calculator, came out at 13.175. But as this is a money question, I only need 2 decimal places, so I've rounded that to £13.18. So that's my estimate for the mean hourly pay for these 80 workers. To identify which of these groups is the mode, I've looked for the highest frequency, which is 32. Yeah, 32 people are paid in this £10 to £12 range. So that's my answer. Yeah, I write the whole text of what's in the first column. And finally, to find where my median is, I'm going to have to do that running total thing that I did before. So here are my first 32 values. Add in the next 24, that takes me up to 56. These 14 take me up to 70. And the final 10 take me up to 80. So 40 values, my halfway point, 80 values, my halfway point is 40. So I'm looking for when my running total of frequency goes past 40. And it's here in the second row. So I'm going to say that this class or this group of 12 to 14 is the group or the class that contains the median value. I've now written in that answer for which class contains the median value. It's this second one here. For grouped frequency tables, you won't be asked to find range, because the lowest hourly pay, we don't know whether it's £10 and a penny or £11.37. We haven't got the level of detail needed to be able to work out range. And the reason this is an estimate is because, again, we don't know the exact pay of all these 80 people. We've just got it in groups. So this is how we estimate means when we don't have exact values. So I've given you one example of a grouped frequency table. Previous example, the frequency table wasn't grouped. Main difference here is midpoints. For grouped frequency tables, we add a midpoint column and then we multiply midpoint with frequency. So hope that helps when you get presented with this sort of a question on your GCSE exam. Thank you for watching and listening.